It was just another lazy Tuesday afternoon in Mumbai's most luxurious neighborhood, Malabar Hill, the kind of place where secrets are supposed to stay behind polished doors and ocean-facing windows. But on March 12th, 2024, inside the upscale 20th floor apartment of Tani Heights, something happened that would haunt a family forever and shock the entire city. It started with silence. A silence so thick it made phones ring unanswered, cameras show empty rooms, and hearts pound faster. This wasn't just a routine day. This was the beginning of a mystery so dark it would take more than CCTV footage to uncover the truth. The Shah family had everything: wealth, comfort, and a life most could only dream of. 67-year-old Mukesh Shah, the family patriarch, owned a high-end jewelry showroom near Nariman Point. His wife, Jyoti Shah, also 67, was the calm presence who managed their home, while their 42-year-old daughter Neha supported the business side by side with her father. Their sea-facing 4-bedroom apartment had all the luxuries: expensive furniture, modern decor, and even a servant's quarter. They employed 3 house helps: Ashok the cook, Ajay the cleaner, and Kanhaiya, the new all-rounder domestic help who had just joined the day before. That afternoon, as usual, Mukesh and Neha left for work around 1:30 p.m. after lunch. Jyoti stayed home. At around 5 p.m., Neha casually called her mother to ask about dinner and check in, as she always did. But this time, her call rang out and disconnected. She waited a few minutes and tried the landline. Same result. No answer. Neha wasn't worried yet, just puzzled. Maybe her mother was in the washroom or taking a nap. But as more minutes passed and there was no call back, a strange discomfort began crawling up her spine. Neha called their cook Ashok, who said he had gone to the flat around 5 p.m. to begin dinner prep, but no one answered the door. He knocked, rang the bell, and even called out for Jyoti, assuming she was inside. But the apartment remained silent, locked from within. Confused, Ashok returned to his own home. Neha then tried reaching Ajay, the second servant. He explained he had finished work by 2:30 p.m. and had left the apartment. He had no idea what happened after. Still calm, but increasingly suspicious, Neha attempted to reach Kanhaiya, the full-time help. His phone was off. Now, worry turned to panic. Neha told her father everything. Mukesh, who had installed CCTV cameras inside their home for security, checked the live feed from his phone. He saw nothing. 3 cameras, one in the hall, one in the kitchen, and one in the servants' room, all showed stillness. Jyoti wasn't on screen. Neither was Kanhaiya. That eerie quiet began to scream. Something was wrong. Mukesh immediately called their building manager, requesting him to check the apartment. The manager went up, knocked repeatedly, but again, no one answered. The door remained locked. Mukesh then called Ajay again and asked him to rush to the apartment. It was now past 6 p.m. Ajay arrived and confirmed. No response from inside. He descended to the ground floor where their family driver was waiting. Meanwhile, Mukesh and Neha had left the showroom and were racing home. When they arrived, they used their spare key to unlock the front door. What they saw would freeze them in place. The apartment was in complete disarray. The living room looked like it had been rummaged through. Things were thrown around, drawers slightly ajar, cushions scattered. They ran to the bedroom, and there she was. Jyoti Shah lay motionless on the bed. Her eyes were closed. Her arms, always adorned with gold bangles, were bare. The room around her looked as if someone had searched it in a frenzy. Neha rushed to her mother's side, shaking her, shouting, but Jyoti didn't move. She tried CPR, but there was no heartbeat, no breath. It was 6:30 p.m. when someone finally called the police. Jyoti was rushed to St. Elizabeth Hospital, but it was too late. The doctors declared her dead on arrival. One glance at her neck, and everything changed. There were marks, strangulation marks. This wasn't a natural death. This was murder. And not just any murder. It was one committed inside a fortress of security. A 20th floor apartment in one of Mumbai's safest areas, watched by CCTV, monitored entry gates, and guarded lobbies. The police filed a case under IPC Section 302. All 3 house helps were questioned immediately. Ashok and Ajay were taken into custody. But Kanhaiya? He had vanished. His phone remained switched off, and he hadn't returned home. A 19-year-old boy, newly hired, living in the servant quarter, missing the day a woman dies mysteriously? It didn't take long for suspicion to point straight at him. But who was this boy, and how did he enter the Shah family's life? Investigations revealed that Kanhaiya was hired through a personal recommendation. His father, Sanjay Pandit, worked as a security guard in the neighboring building. Jyoti Shah, one of the house helps, vouched for him. Kanhaiya had just arrived in Mumbai a few months ago from Sitamarhi, Bihar. His background check? Not done. His references? Trusted purely on relationships. No one expected danger to come from a teenager with innocent eyes and no prior record. As police pored over CCTV footage, a disturbing timeline emerged. At 2:30 p.m., Jyoti was last seen entering her bedroom. At 3 p.m., Kanhaiya followed. 10 minutes later, he came out and disappeared into the servant room. By 4 p.m., he had changed clothes, packed a small bag, and walked out of the building. The corridor cameras later showed him hiding the bag in a corner. When he left again, his hands were empty. No one stopped him. No one suspected him. He vanished into the city like a ghost. One crucial question haunted investigators. Why only the gold bangles on Jyoti's wrists were missing? Why not the other jewelry? Why leave behind everything else valuable? If this was a robbery, it was poorly planned. If it was murder, it was reckless. But what if it was both, or neither? The case had just begun to unravel, and behind its locked doors were secrets darker than anyone imagined. Who was Kanhaiya Kumar, really? And what drove a 19-year-old boy to commit such a cold-blooded act in less than 24 hours of joining a new job? In the next part, we trace his journey through the shadows of Mumbai's slums, the whispers of his criminal friends, and the mistakes that finally led to his dramatic arrest. But before that, ask yourself, what would make a boy with no enemies, no record, and no history suddenly turn into a killer? Before the blood on the bangles could dry, Mumbai police launched a relentless manhunt. The suspect, Kanhaiya Kumar, had vanished into the city's maze of chaos. He wasn't just missing. He had melted into the crowd like he was never there. But the truth? It was darker than anyone had imagined. This wasn't just a boy on the run. This was a teenager who had planned something chilling from the moment he walked into the Shah family's home. The question now wasn't just where he went. It was why he did what he did, and who made him this way. Born and raised in the narrow lanes of Sitamarhi, Bihar, Kanhaiya's life was a hard one from the start. His mother passed away when he was just a child, leaving his father, Sanjay Pandit, to raise him and his older brother alone. Sanjay worked as a security guard in Mumbai, while Kanhaiya stayed behind to complete school. But school wasn't all he was learning. Surrounded by boys who bragged about their crimes like war stories, Kanhaiya grew up idolizing the wrong people. While his father dreamed of seeing him settled with a stable job, Kanhaiya secretly wanted something else: power, respect, fear. In his world, crime wasn't shameful. It was a badge of honor. Late in 2023, Sanjay decided it was time to bring Kanhaiya to Mumbai. Through a recommendation from his co-worker Jyoti Shah, yes, the same Ajay who worked at the Shah residence, Kanhaiya was offered a job. The pay was decent, 15,000 rupees a month with food and lodging. Sanjay thought he had secured a future for his son, but he had no idea he was handing him the key to a trapdoor. By March 11th, Kanhaiya joined the Shah household as a live-in help. By March 12th, he was a fugitive. The Shah family, trusting Sanjay and Ajay, hadn't run a police verification. After all, what could go wrong in a building surrounded by guards and covered with cameras? But Kanhaiya had watched everything: the routines, the habits, the vulnerabilities. He saw when Mukesh and Neha left. He saw when Ashok and Ajay exited. He knew that Jyoti would take her daily afternoon nap like clockwork. He didn't just take the job. He had been studying the perfect moment to strike. On the day of the murder, CCTV showed him calmly helping Jyoti in the kitchen. Then, at 3 p.m., he walked into her bedroom. What happened inside lasted barely 10 minutes, but it ended with a silent body and missing gold bangles. Instead of panicking, Kanhaiya coolly changed his clothes, packed a bag, and disappeared from the apartment by 4 p.m. It was only hours later that the family discovered the horror lying just a room away. Police began combing through footage and questioning everyone who had ever spoken to Kanhaiya. They even pulled in his father and brother, both shocked beyond words. Sanjay Pandit couldn't believe his son was capable of murder. But Kanhaiya had made no contact. His phone was off, and he had left no trace. Still, the cops knew. The boy would get scared. He'd call someone eventually. And they were right. On the afternoon of March 13th, Kanhaiya used a stranger's phone to call his father. "Where are you?" he asked. Sanjay, already sitting in the police station, didn't flinch. "Home," he lied. Kanhaiya didn't say much. He hung up. That one call, just a few seconds long, was enough. The number he dialed from was tracked. It was somewhere near Igatpuri, moving fast. He was on a train, likely heading to Bihar. With no time to lose, Mumbai police alerted their counterparts in Jalgaon and Bhusawal. The train was expected to stop there. Dozens of officers from GRP and RPF waited at the station. Hours later, the train crawled into Bhusawal. One by one, they checked each coach. And finally, they found him, alone, calm, still wearing the same expressionless face from the CCTV footage. The boy who thought he could disappear was now in handcuffs. Back in Mumbai, Kanhaiya denied everything at first. "I didn't do anything," he repeated. "I just wanted to go home." But the police weren't buying it. They laid out the CCTV footage, timeline, and inconsistencies. Slowly, cracks appeared in his story. Finally, he confessed. But his confession wasn't filled with regret. It was filled with calculation. He had planned it. Not the murder, he claimed, just the theft. But when Jyoti woke up and caught him trying to take her bangles, he panicked. She screamed. He grabbed her throat. Everything went quiet. Kanhaiya claimed he never intended to kill, but after it happened, he couldn't risk being caught. So he stole the bangles, packed his bag, and made his exit. He even admitted to hiding his bag in the corridor, afraid the guards would question him if they saw him leaving with luggage. The shocking part: he had only been in the house for a day. Just one day. and he had absorbed everything: the timings, the blind spots, the silence. The police found the hidden bag. Inside it, clothes, documents, his Aadhaar card, and school mark sheets. The bangles? He claimed he gave them away to a passenger on the train. A lie. The bangles were later recovered. The motive wasn't just theft. It was validation. In his twisted world, he wanted to prove something to the criminals he admired. He wanted to be talked about, feared, and remembered. But what does that say about the people around him? Could a family like the Shahs, who offered him shelter, trust, and employment, ever imagine their generosity would be repaid in blood? Or about his father, Sanjay Pandit, who raised him alone, trusted his friends, and believed in a better future for his son. Back in the interrogation room, Kanhaiya showed little emotion. His only concern, that his friends would now know what he did. That he was no longer just another village boy in the big city. He was someone with a story written in crime. As this chilling second chapter ends, one question echoes through the streets of Mumbai. Is evil something we're born with, or something we learn? And when a system fails to check a stranger's past, who really shares the blame for the murder that follows? The city had its answer. Kanhaiya Kumar, the 19-year-old boy who had entered the Shah family's home as a servant, had left it as a murderer. But while the public whispered and the headlines screamed, deeper questions began surfacing. What turned a seemingly innocent teenager into a cold-blooded killer in just 24 hours? Was it desperation? Was it the influence of broken surroundings? Or had something inside him been waiting, just waiting, for a reason to strike? As the investigation deepened, the police pieced together a fuller picture of the boy behind the crime. Kanhaiya had lived most of his life in the shadows of neglect. His father, busy with long shifts as a security guard in Mumbai, could only do so much. Without a mother, and with his older brother working elsewhere, Kanhaiya grew up craving approval. But in Sitamarhi's narrow lanes, that approval didn't come through school awards. It came through boldness, fearlessness, and tales of crime. He had fallen in with a group of local troublemakers, all of whom boasted about time in jail, police run-ins, and stolen goods like they were trophies. These boys became his role models. And slowly, Kanhaiya's mind rewired itself. He didn't want to be a helper. He wanted to be remembered. And in his world, the fastest path to that wasn't success. It was infamy. So when his father brought him to Mumbai for a better life, what Kanhaiya saw wasn't opportunity. It was a stage. The wealthy Shah family, with their lavish apartment and golden routines, became his target, not out of hate, but ambition. He had no specific grudge, no abuse, no anger, just envy, just desire. The very first day he entered the Shah home, he started taking mental notes when each person left, who was in which room, how long Jyoti napped, how tight the building's security was. He wasn't just observing, he was preparing. That's what made this crime so chilling. It wasn't random. It was rehearsed in the mind of a boy pretending to be helpful while plotting the unthinkable. What shocked even seasoned detectives was the sheer calm with which he executed it. There was no noise, no sign of forced entry or escape. He simply waited until Jyoti was alone and asleep. He entered her room, perhaps thinking he could steal the bangles and slip away, but when her eyes opened, everything changed. Maybe she screamed, maybe she didn't, but Kanhaiya panicked, or maybe he didn't. Maybe that part was part of the plan too. The forensic report showed marks consistent with forceful strangulation. There was no struggle across the room, just at the bed. meaning it was quick, controlled, purposeful. And once it was done, Kanhaiya didn't crumble. He cleaned himself, packed a bag, and walked out like it was just another shift ending. That's not desperation. That's decision. When interrogated about the bangles, he lied, first claiming he had given them to a stranger on a train, but police later recovered them. They hadn't been sold, not yet. That raised another possibility. Was theft really the motive, or just a mask? Had the murder been more about thrill than reward? Had Kanhaiya wanted to prove himself capable of taking a life, just so he could feel equal to the street criminals he idolized? One of the officers involved in the case said, "We usually see murderers with a history, anger, abuse, revenge. But this boy, he just wanted to be famous in his own twisted way." The more Kanhaiya was questioned, the clearer it became. He didn't hate the Shahs. He barely knew them. His only emotion was calculation. He believed this one crime would earn him instant street credibility. He didn't just kill a woman. He betrayed a family that had trusted him without question. And that's the tragedy that lingered the longest. Mukesh Shah and his daughter Neha had welcomed this boy into their home. They didn't ask for ID verification, background checks, or police clearance. Why would they? He came from someone they knew. His father was a neighbor's guard. His referral was from an existing staff member. That misplaced trust shattered their world in ways no thief could ever plan. After the arrest, Jyoti Shah was laid to rest, and the apartment where it all happened was sealed temporarily. The silence in the home was now permanent. The laughter at dinner, the casual phone calls, the routines, all gone. Neha, once cheerful and ambitious, struggled to make peace with the fact that she had spoken to her mother just hours before her murder. Mukesh, a man of jewels and stability, now lived with the guilt of having installed all the cameras, except one in the bedroom where his wife died. The society, once known for wealth and safety, became a symbol of questions. Everyone started verifying their own house helps. Fingerprints were taken, IDs submitted. Police checks began happening, not just in Tani Heights, but across neighboring complexes. For many, Jyoti's death was a wake-up call. Kanhaiya remains behind bars awaiting trial. Legal proceedings are slow, but the evidence is overwhelming. Confession, CCTV, the stolen bangles. His lawyer will likely argue for a reduced sentence based on age or lack of criminal history. But the court and the city already know one thing for sure. This wasn't just a crime of poverty. This was a crime of ego. And now, we return to that haunting final question. What creates a killer? Is it the absence of love, the presence of crime, or the hunger for recognition in a world that ignores the quiet ones? Let us know what you think. Could this tragedy have been prevented? Is the system failing both the victims and the lost youth like Kanhaiya? Let's talk about it in the comments.